Microtrending.
Welcome back. I'm Gabrielle, and you are listening to Microtrending, the podcast for anything that is having a moment, for better or for worse. We have a few things for worse today, as usual, and we will get into things pretty quickly here. I do want to jump into the meat of this episode pretty quickly, but first and foremost, thank you, as always, for being here. I do have to acknowledge this is an audio only episode, and I'm realizing, just FYI, that I may need to do more of these, if that's cool with you. It's not my preference. I do like the video format. I like having video clips also. I think they're slightly more entertaining, and it is kind of unfortunate that that is the currency of podcasting now, to have clips, but I do think I'll be able to do more and more often on the fly with audio only. So TBD, but at least for this week only, you're just hearing my voice, and I hope that's okay. Anyway, in terms of what's new, not too much. If I were a politician, celebrity, or person mentioned in the Epstein files, I might be having a bad time. I might be worried right about now, but that's not me. Plenty of other people having a difficult week, but not me. I guess another good news, I have gotten back into watching TV a little bit, like TV beyond reality TV, the usual. And I won't dive too deeply into them here, but what I have watched most recently is the first 2 episodes of I Love LA, Rachel Sennett's new show, based here. I have some thoughts, and Nobody Wants This season 2. If you're interested in knowing my deeper thoughts about either of these shows or any show, let me know. I can find the best format to share that in, because I could really go off on Nobody Wants This specifically. But as of the second episode, I am enjoying I Love LA. We'll see. The pilot, the first episode, was fine. It was a little heavy on being like LA meme and self-referential, and in a way that I just feel like we've moved past. I don't know. I think a lot of TV has kind of devolved into that, especially in terms of dialogue. But I think the second episode is proof that this could work. It could continue to work. So I am excited to see more. Nobody Wants This, on the other hand, saw the first season, wasn't a huge fan. Kristen Bell is my Anne Hathaway. Remember how people hated Anne Hathaway for some reason, for being just an earnest theater kid? And yes, she was probably a little annoying, but there is something about Kristen Bell that just does not sit right with me. I'm sorry to Kristen Bell. Maybe not sorry to Dax Shepard, but her in this extremely unlikable main character role just makes it a tough watch. I think Adam Brody and Justine Loop and, other members of the supporting cast do save both seasons, but her character, Joanne, in season 2 is so unlikable to the point where it defies logic that Adam Brody's Rabbi Rockoff would have any positive emotions, especially romance and attraction toward this person. It's just, it boggles the mind. And there are some playfully insufferable characters in I Love LA. I think people talk a lot about insufferable characters, and you can have a show like Always Sunny, one of my favorite shows of all time, a favorite show of many, where the characters are so almost unrealistically terrible and just gonzo that it works for the show. And neither of these are similar to Always Sunny at all. I'm not a TV critic or person, as you can probably tell. I just have random opinions. But there has to be something redeeming. And sometimes it's humor, right? And sometimes it is being a catalyst and pushing the storylines along. There has to be some sort of reward for all the shittiness. And I just don't think that we get anything from Joanne and Nobody Wants This. Anyway, and people are talking about all of the product placement and nobody wants this season 2. I get it. I think it is tacky. It is ugly. It is gauche, but that's not the thing that makes me dislike the show. It is a thing that makes me dislike. Nobody wants this season 2. The product placement is something that nobody wants. But I think if you're getting hung up on the product placement, that is similar to somebody being like the grammar police or hating on people for using like or too much. Like, yes, gold star for noticing it and pointing it out. There are bigger problems here. And the biggest problem, of course, is the foster sisters, but that is a thought and a conversation for another time. Anyway, 2 LA-based shows that I'm not going to necessarily say are worth watching if you're not interested, but if you are, remotely interested in seeing how people with an abundance of disposable income, seeing how they like to spend their money at the farmer's market or on Courage Bagels specifically, maybe a little Erewhon, why not? Go ahead and check them out. And I love this city. I visited a lot when I was a kid, and I've also been here for about 9 years at this point. It is so much bigger and richer and has so many more positive qualities than is generally marketed. So I do have all the love in the world for LA, but we would be lying to ourselves if we didn't recognize that there is, a certain level of out of touchness, a very specific flavor of beige. And that leads us to, unfortunately, back to Sydney Sweeney, the American Eagle campaign. She did an interview recently where she was asked about this, so I have some thoughts on that. And then I do want to talk a little bit about what she was wearing in that interview, because it is connected to a more specific archetype that I have seen so much of. It's like peak 2025, but it's definitely been around, especially the past like 2 or 3 years. So we will get to that. And it's a little yeehaw, so giddy up.
Microtrending.
No one's more important right now than Miss Sydney Sweeney and her GQ interview. So let's circle back to that for a second, while it's still timely. If you haven't seen the interview, it was with GQ. It took place at Chateau Marmont here in LA, and it was a conversation with journalist Catherine Stoffel, I think that's how you say her last name, about, her year, her 2025, about her most recent movie that has just come out, Christie. A little bit of a flop. And of course, the infamous Sydney Sweeney Has Great Genes campaign with American Eagle. The discourse has returned like whack-a-mole with a vengeance. And just like before, I have thoughts. Okay? A lot of the same thoughts, some new ones, maybe. Of course, because she has a new film out, she's not doing like a non-apology tour 2.0 to talk about this campaign for, no good reason. She's presumably trying to move on, and I would say good luck. It's probably not going to fully happen. At least for those of us who remember. It was not that long ago. Like I mentioned, she is doing press for her new movie Christie, which I don't know what the numbers are looking like now. I think I did see, and I don't know if this is fake or not, but allegedly her like PR people are trying to squeaky clean some headlines about it being a huge fucking flop. But yeah, across the board, not so hot. And for reasons we'll get into in a minute here, I don't wish her career success. Plenty of other people I wish career success to. She would not be one of them, especially after this interview and the campaign. But perhaps like a little bit to her credit, I feel like opening weekends aren't what they used to be. And then there's the fact that this is not like a mainstream movie. I know like she is very recognizable, but unfortunately, some of her audience, not all, but a lot, I might be reaching here, but I feel like they do not appreciate her as an actress. At least the men. There are some that do. I'm sure there are some that do, but like from what I've seen of her defenders, she is boobs to them. You know, that's what she represents, which is misogynistic and unfair. And I feel for her in maybe in that way only. But she has catered to the boob half, the breast half, which is men, but also Republicans. Not necessarily the pedo ones, but largely Republicans, because Democrats are famously, as we know, more of a contingent of ass men. So she is kind of reaping what she has sown there. And I don't want to diminish the art of acting, right? She completely transformed herself for this role. If you see any clips or any photos, she transformed herself into this female wrestler whose stories, you know, enduring and escaping what would have been fatal domestic violence. Um, you know, there is an opportunity for speaking out against domestic violence here and bringing awareness to that. But when you think about the average Sydney Sweeney defender, like someone who would pay money to protect their white nationalist princess, um, some of them may like female wrestling, probably a good percentage. But they would probably also prefer to pay money to see topless Sydney Sweeney than Sydney Sweeney in that role. These are people who also probably feel neutral to positive about domestic violence rather than being in favor of condemning it. Anyway, sorry to this movie. I have not read any reviews, I've just seen headlines. But this is just kind of setting the scene for the immediate environment around this interview and the discourse this past week. It has been a few months, obviously, since the American Eagle campaign. And just like the campaign and all the different spots, this interview was really a pain to watch. I watched most of it. I watched most of it. I watched the parts that mattered most and then maybe like 70% of the rest. But it was like watching a Wi-Fi connection delay in real time, where you can't tell if the person is just slow or if their Spectrum internet is acting up. It hurt. Anyway, the part people are reacting to is, of course, the journalists' giggly little questions about the American Eagle campaign. Stoffel was like, well, you know, you've been getting backlash, and, you know, the gist of it is that people were saying maybe in this political climate, people shouldn't joke about white supremacy. And I want to give you a chance to talk about that specifically. And she did not use the intonation that I just did, but she was, you know, a little goofy. Here, let me throw you a bone about it. And Miss Sydney Sweeney pretty quickly responds. You know, you can see that she's like processing, like, kind of how to respond to it when Stoffel was talking. But she says, when I have an issue I want to speak about, people will hear. That is the clip circulating. But earlier in the interview, just for context, they discuss, you know, things like separating the art from the artist, which is hilarious, and privacy as like a celebrity and actress, and how her family reminds her that there's the real world out there, which is code for MAGA. As an actor or a celebrity, if you can set certain boundaries, that's great. You don't want to share 100% of your personal life and beliefs. Okay, that's kind of how things used to be before we knew way too much about everyone. I do know that that was kind of the norm now. But when you agree to an interview, which touches on a campaign that you also agreed to do, you weren't forced to do this, and you had a heavy hand in this campaign, which I don't know if she said that explicitly, but one of the head marketing people at American Eagle made a big deal about like how involved Sydney was and like she wanted to like push it and make it edgy or whatever. Like she can't wash her hands of this. But when you've agreed to those things and you were offered, and you know how it affected people, and you were offered the chance to say 4 simple words: I condemn white supremacy, and you can't even do that. That is the tell to point out the obvious. And if 4 words was too many, she could have said white supremacy bad, since talking feels effortful for her. But instead, she has more to say, more words. When I have an issue I want to speak about, people will hear. So my interpretation is the issue you wanted to speak on and did was that Sydney Sweeney has gray genes with a G. Got it. That non-answer is the answer. It is co-signing white supremacy in that way. She was handed the opportunity to clear things up in such a softball way. And you could watch this and say, well, it doesn't seem like anything has been cleared up. What a waste of an interview. But she actually did clear things up. It is pretty clear in terms of where she stands. So there's that.
Microtrending.
To be honest, I was not expecting the Great Genes debacle to resurface again so soon. But what can you do? When it pops up, it pops up. And it is probably going to plague her career in some way. Maybe forever, maybe not. Anyway, I don't think I've seen anyone yet talk about Sydney Sweeney's styling for that interview, if that's what was happening there. So I'm going to for a second, because it is so exemplary, I think, of the kind of non-style beige sim aesthetic that is popular pretty much everywhere. It's not just an LA thing, but I do find it to be prevalent in a major way in some parts of LA, almost to the extent where it feels like a costume. And it was just so on the nose in this interview that it made me laugh. None of these pieces individually, I think, are that terrible. I actually really don't like the boots, and not because they're cowboy boots. I think there's a time and place, maybe not now, for cowboy boots. I don't like these ones specifically, but like independently, none of these things are bad, but put together, it creates a certain effect. But she is wearing this oversized burgundy leather jacket and a white tee, I think, and then presumably shorts. She's sitting down the whole time, so you can't see. The jacket is kind of like a mini dress. It's huge. And then some roughly matching brown cowboy boots. And those, because they have this like white stitching, that's what like stands out when you see the fit together. Otherwise, very kind of, one note, one color. And then the boots altogether, it's something you've seen before. It's extremely Hailey Bieber stuns while giving us nothing at Stagecoach or even Coachella, really, because it's all the same shit at this point. She has this no makeup look going on, and then there's the hair. Um, Listen, I would feel bad commenting on it if it were pretty much anyone else, but it really made the whole get up seem like one big fuck it, whatever. I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I don't have to own a hairbrush. At least my hair is blonde adjacent, and my jeans are preferred by Reply Guys and the president. It just kind of felt like a fuck you in a way, more than like messy chic. There's a way to like look undone while looking done, and this just seemed like kind of like I rolled out of bed. I guess I have to do this interview. And on someone else, I really think this whole thing could have felt and looked more like model off duty. It would still be boring. I think there's a very much a lack of styling here, but on her and just accompanied by her attitude throughout the whole interview, it just like together felt disrespectful. It's so interesting how those like played together. But we need to talk about the cowboy boots specifically again because they really stand out when you're watching, and because this is the wardrobe item. I know we've seen the hats, kemosabe or not. I saw more people than made me comfortable wearing cowboy hats at a farmer's market this past weekend, but the boots are also a thing. It is the thing, especially if you're just, it's not under jeans, like you're seeing the full cowboy boot as like part of the outfit. That feels like a dog whistle in some ways here. And I've made multiple videos now. Please feel free to check them out if you haven't, about just Western dressing and like the frontier spirit bullshit and what, you know, and what the resurgence of like that flavor of Americana says about where we're at right now and kind of multiple ways in which it's problematic. So there's a much deeper level that we could go there. We won't get like too in the weeds with it here. Just from like a styling standpoint, just from an outfit perspective, there is a type of person in the city, in Los Angeles, on the west side specifically. So not the like self-appointed cool kid transplants in Silver Lake, etc., but on the west side, who I used to, at least among peers, refer to as Venice MAGA, which is not very creative, but it is all the ingredients of the original recipe, MAGA, with an extra dose of MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, lots of wellness preoccupation. These people have conservative values, but they also have a like breathwork teacher. There's also a sprinkling of big tech, unfortunately, and a heaping pile of beige yeehaw dressing, odds in clothes. And I say I used to call them Venice MAGA because it's just a lazy first draft name. But I now like to think of them as Penmar people. For those who don't know, there is a local golf course in the Venice area that has these Friday concerts called Penmar Sunset Sessions. I think this has been going on for like 5 years or so. I'm not sure. It could have been going on forever, and I was just only aware of them the past 5 years. But they are like watering holes for this type of person who is, of course, likely wearing cowboy boots and also wearing the same outfit as no fewer than 40 other people there and at least one dog. And in many ways, the gender does not matter. Everyone is kind of just all like wearing the same oversized jackets. I am not morally against golf. I think if it's an opportunity for male bonding that's not extremely toxic, why not? Golf culture is like another thing, but like, I'm not saying we need to get rid of golf. And I'm not against live music. I haven't loved the music options, the music offerings at Penmar Sunset Sessions. I'm not really like a country, bluegrass, or jam band person. But, I'm not against live music, and I'm certainly not against enjoying the company of others in the wild. We need to do more of that. Touching grass. I am in favor of that. But it is very spooky, and it's past Halloween. It is very spooky to walk around and see the same person. They're almost all white, as you can imagine. The same person 50, 60 times. Guy with a mustache. Shorter guy with a mustache. Taller guy with a mustache. Guy you saw on Hinge. And then a few more. Old guy who wants to know what your ethnicity is and where your accent is from. Sir, I am from California. You have a tea time tomorrow. It is past your bedtime. And yes, I have been to Penmar a few times with friends and my sister because it's something to do. I think I've been 3 times. And it's fun people watching, I guess, until it's not, until you have the realization. But it has also changed for the worse as culturally things have changed for the worse. And it has all like funneled into this one grassy area every Friday. It's actually really wild. You can see corralled into this area like what we have become in a way, and not in a good way. It's really at this point I think only worth going to as social data collecting. Like if you want to go with someone and like watch and like take note of everything that I've mentioned here, that's something you can do. People watching, but like in a horror movie way, if that makes sense. If seeing Benson Boone clones is a jump scare to you, maybe beware. I'm not saying that everyone there is a MAGA voter. I don't think statistically that that's the truth or realistic, but I do think that that venue and the people that it brings together is kind of perpetuating this whitewashed monoculture that I even hesitate to call it culture. It just kind of feels like college 2.0 or like a club sponsored an outdoor concert and the school also got rid of DEI and affirmative action. It's just maybe not the party you want to be at, but it's the party that's happening across the country. Anyway, many an oversized leather jacket, as I mentioned, many effortful attempts at being chill, cool girl, and cool guy, and many cowboy boots. Many, many. And to be clear, the Penmar person, quote unquote, doesn't just exist in the confines of that golf course. They have lives, they go other places. For example, I went to this backyard coffee shop or something variety show on a whim a few months ago. It was near Venice, but not quite. And color me surprised to walk in on nearly the entire audience in cowboy boots. It was like jarring. And it was not like a Western themed evening. It wasn't Desert Five Spot where everyone is like kind of in on the joke and the theme. This is not a themed evening. This was, however, kind of just the understood uniform. Also, I guess at the show they were going, I only caught like the second half of it, but I think they were going to vote on a variety show act as the winner, allegedly, and I saw at the end instead they were like, just kidding, everyone wins. You're all winners and we love you so much. This is what's wrong with you. With us. Should not have said you. This is what's wrong with all of us right now. I don't know, I guess maybe this sounds mean. Like the acts that I saw were fine, but this everyone wins, you're all winners and we love you so much. Like we are protecting mediocrity at all costs under the guise of inclusivity, but it is really based in insecurity and fear and white supremacy, which, to clarify, does not have to do with a variety show at all, but it does have to do with other manifestations of the all lives matter mindset. People against DEI and affirmative action. The, let's all dress the same, let's all get along and hype each other up, let's chase good vibes together and mainline bovine collagen together and spread kindness. This is textbook Operation Beige because it is very palatable, very marketable. Like, what's wrong? We're all just having a good time. Normalizing things that are boring and engineered to identify with gentrification and eugenics. That is what the acronym is. There's less and less room for anyone or anything exceptional. And those people who live outside of like white American standards, people of color specifically, they have to be extra exceptional to be considered on the same level, which is a whole other thing. But in terms of like championing mediocrity because of what it looks like, we've already placed Taylor Swift, for example, as an S tier artist. We have given Benson Boone role model and somber careers. I just don't think that the average person in 2025, 2026 would be able to discern the exceptional from the mediocre at this point, or even slop. I have not even talked about AI today, which is very rare, but like that's in there too. If there's enough of that in your media diet, that is kind of what you're primed for. And this is a whole other thought and whole other like tangent I could go down, and I won't for now. But as much as I'm in favor of like authenticity and relatability when it comes to like artists and the people that we champion and the people that we platform and continue to give platforms and fuel the careers of, I think someone can be too average and too relatable and like not particularly like skilled in any area, that it does ultimately kind of bring down whatever art form and industry they're operating in. And I can think of so many examples. I probably talked about them before. I can maybe save that for another time, but that is related to all this. There is a lasting effect for sure. Anyway, there's an Instagram account. I don't remember what it's called right now. It's something like Data and Fashion. Mention that searches are up for certain things, including like blue eyeshadow and leopard print, which those things together maybe sound a little bit scary, unless you're into that. I don't know. I like pops of color and I love an animal print. I think it can be treated as a neutral sometimes. But the fact that searches are up for those things, unless somebody is planning some sort of like 80s costume, I don't know. I feel like that's a good sign. I'm hopeful. I think we need to course correct. I would love for us to have a little bit more individuality in our day-to-day dressing, and there are plenty of people who are doing this all the time, perhaps you, but it is concerning to see how there is still the pattern, especially with like women's fashion and personal style, if you can call it personal style, where what we choose to wear and what we choose to buy seems to pretty directly mirror the behavior that TikTok and other platforms have taught us to do, which is driven by FOMO, driven by, the insecurity of missing out, the fear of missing out. I like to call it FOMO with a PH because it's fake. It's not real. You're not actually missing out on anything. But you're wearing the thing and you are buying the thing to be able to keep up with the hamster wheel of what's trending and the algorithm. And this has been going on for a long time, but it is just at a peak beige point right now. Where if you go back and watch the Sydney Sweeney interview, you see her outfit. It seems like just a whatever outfit, just threw this on. But imagine every person dressing like that. Where is that going to get us? What does that say about the person wearing it? Except I saw, insert celebrity here wear a similar jacket, and now I guess this is my uniform. The only way to break free of the beige matrix is to start thinking for yourself. And I've said it before, and I will probably say it 1,000 times again. And if you're Sydney Sweeney, maybe thinking for yourself is a racist act. I don't know. Anyway, the message, as always, is you do you and wear what you want. But, don't let the outfit wear you. If it feels like a costume, it's probably not you. Probably not the fit. Don't abandon yourself in your quest for personal style. You can discover yourself, but you don't need to, put on Hailey Bieber skin. You gotta be your own person.
Microtrending.
Anyway, thanks for hanging with me here. If for any reason you are totally new to the show and or my work, you can find me on pretty much every platform as at saltlacroix, SALTLACROIX. And if there's any microtrending topics you would like me to explore, you can DM me or you can email me at saltlacroix@gmail.com. And yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, all of that. And I will see you soon. Bye.
Microtrending.